I never thought a single text could make me question every memory I had of my family. I was scrolling through my sister's old phone, looking for a contact she had asked me to save, when I saw a message from someone named R. The message wasn't new, it was from 3 weeks ago, but what I read made my stomach drop. It said, "Meet me tonight. No one can know. Don't tell anyone, not even your brother." I froze. My sister, Lily, was usually the most responsible person I knew. She had a perfect GPA, worked part-time at the coffee shop downtown, and babysat our neighbors' kids without ever complaining. The idea that she was secretly sneaking around, hiding things from me, didn't make sense. I put the phone down, telling myself I was overreacting. Maybe R was just a coworker or a friend. But the next message I saw broke that illusion completely. "Everything we talked about stays between us. You know what happens if anyone finds out?" It wasn't the type of joke Lily would ever play. My heart started racing. I tried to remember if she had been acting differently lately, more distracted, more secretive, but nothing had stood out. She still came home at the same time, did the same chores, laughed at the same dumb jokes Dad made, but deep down I knew something was wrong. The next night I stayed up pretending to be asleep. I heard her quietly leave her room and slip out the front door. I waited 5 minutes, then followed, careful not to make a sound. She walked 2 blocks, looking around nervously, and entered a building I'd never noticed before. A small sign read 24-hour tattoo and piercing, but the windows were dark, and I could see shadows moving inside. I wanted to turn around, to leave, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but curiosity and fear kept me rooted to the sidewalk. She didn't just go in for a tattoo. I watched as she met someone inside. A guy, tall, wearing a hoodie, and they exchanged something small, something she hid in her jacket pocket. I couldn't see exactly what it was, but the way she tensed, the way he leaned close and whispered, told me this wasn't just casual. I didn't know what to do. My first thought was to call Dad, but I stopped. What if I was overreacting? What if I confronted Lily and she hated me forever for following her? What if I was about to ruin her life for nothing? I went back to my room, trying to sleep, but my brain wouldn't stop replaying that meeting. Something about it screamed danger. Over the next few days, I watched her more closely. I noticed tiny things I'd ignored before. How she always had her phone face down on the table. How she seemed to leave texts unanswered. How sometimes she looked terrified for no reason. Then came the night I couldn't ignore it anymore. She had a plan to sneak out again, and this time I followed her farther. She didn't go to the tattoo shop. She went to an abandoned warehouse by the river. The place looked deserted, but I could hear voices inside. I pressed my face against a crack in the boarded-up door and saw them, Lily and a group of strangers I didn't recognize. They were whispering urgently, moving boxes and bags like they were hiding something. One of the guys, the tallest one, looked directly at me for a split second. My heart stopped. I ducked down, but I could feel my pulse in my ears. Then I heard Lily's voice, clear as day. "I told you we can't let him find out. If he comes, everything falls apart." I didn't know what to do. My sister was part of something I couldn't even begin to understand, and it scared me more than anything ever had. I snuck back home that night, my hands shaking, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But the memory of her voice, the fear in it, kept me awake for hours. The next morning, Lily acted like nothing had happened. She smiled at me over breakfast, poured her cereal, joked about my burnt toast. But I couldn't stop thinking about that night. I had 2 choices: confront her and risk losing her trust, or find out more on my own and hope I didn't get caught. I chose the second. Over the next few days, I became obsessed. I started tracking her movements, noting the times she left the house, the streets she took, and any patterns I could see. I never confronted her directly. That felt like a line I couldn't cross, yet. But every night I felt like I was teetering on the edge of discovering something I wasn't ready for. One Thursday, I noticed her phone buzzing more than usual. It was face down, like always, but this time, she left it on the kitchen counter while she ran upstairs to grab her backpack. My hands were shaking as I picked it up, swiping it open. She had hundreds of unread messages from R and others I didn't recognize. The tone of the messages was different, urgent, tense, sometimes just a single word. Now. Then I saw a photo. It was her in the warehouse, holding a black duffel bag looking over her shoulder. My stomach sank. Someone was watching her, or maybe she was watching them. I didn't know what was worse. I knew I was crossing a line, but I couldn't stop. I had to understand what she was doing, who she was involved with. That night, I decided to follow her again further than before. She didn't go to the warehouse this time. She took the bus across town, got off near an old industrial area I didn't even know existed. I followed on foot, keeping my distance. Shadows moved along the broken streets. Graffiti-covered walls loomed, and the sound of distant sirens made my chest tighten. Lily ducked into a narrow alley and I almost lost her. I slowed down, heart hammering, and then I saw her step into a building with a flickering neon sign, Nightfall Records. I froze. I'd never heard of this place. It didn't look like a club or a store, just some abandoned record studio, probably repurposed. I crept closer, pressing my back to the wall, straining to hear. Inside, voices whispered, low and fast, almost like a code. I caught snippets. He can't know. Not now. The plan's too risky if anyone finds out. And then, her voice unmistakable, I can't mess this up. I won't. I ducked behind a dumpster, trying to process what I'd just heard. Something was happening, something big, and she was in the middle of it. I debated leaving, calling someone, even the police, but I didn't know what the hell was actually going on. I couldn't risk it being a misunderstanding. My gut screamed that this was serious. Suddenly the door opened. A man stepped out, tall, built, wearing a dark jacket. He looked around, scanning the street, then froze. My heart leapt into my throat when I realized he was looking straight at me. I ducked lower, pressing myself against the dumpster, holding my breath. After a long minute, he turned and disappeared into the shadows. I didn't know whether to follow him or run. My legs felt like lead. My mind raced. What was Lily involved in? Who were these people? And more importantly, what would happen if they realized I was following her? I made the decision to wait. I couldn't just stand still, but I also couldn't risk making my presence known. I stayed across the street, watching as she re-emerged 20 minutes later, moving faster now, holding the duffel bag tight against her chest. She looked over her shoulder again, cautious, almost paranoid. My stomach twisted. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't just watch anymore. I had to know what was in that bag. I followed her all the way back to the bus stop, careful not to be seen, and saw her hand it off to someone waiting in a beat-up car. I couldn't see the person clearly, but the way Lily trembled as she handed over the bag, it wasn't casual. I went home that night, my mind in chaos. I knew I was in too deep. I couldn't tell anyone, couldn't stop following her, and yet the thought of confronting her terrified me. Whatever she was part of, it wasn't just harmless teenage rebellion. It was something much darker, something dangerous. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. It was in Lily's handwriting. I know you've been watching. Stop, please, for your own good. I wanted to leave it at that, to pretend I hadn't seen anything. But I couldn't. I couldn't stop, and I had a feeling that whatever was coming next, it would change everything. I didn't sleep that night. The note burned in my mind like a warning and a challenge at the same time. I kept replaying everything I'd seen, the duffel bag, the whispered conversations, the man outside the building. Every scenario ended badly in my head, yet I couldn't let it go. I had to know. The next day, I saw her at school, acting normal, laughing with her friends like nothing was happening. I wanted to walk up to her, ask her directly what was going on, but something held me back. Her eyes caught mine across the hallway, sharp and guarded, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. She knew I was watching. She knew I was getting too close. After school, I decided to follow her again, but this time I tried a different approach. I rented a cheap bike. I didn't want to lose her in the city streets. She moved faster than I expected, weaving through traffic, but I kept my distance, staying out of sight. She led me to a part of town I didn't recognize. Dilapidated buildings, trash-strewn sidewalks, the smell of smoke and decay. She stopped in front of an old warehouse, bigger than the last place. No lights, no signs, just a massive rusted sliding door. She knocked 3 times in a pattern I didn't understand. The door creaked open and she slipped inside. I waited, debating whether to follow, but the instinct to uncover the truth pushed me forward. Inside, the warehouse was huge, cavernous. Shadows stretched across the walls, distorted by flickering overhead lights. I could hear muffled voices, footsteps, and the low hum of machines. Then I saw her, Lily, crouched beside a table covered with small packages, carefully sealing them one by one. I crouched behind a stack of crates, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. There were more people here than I expected, men and women of varying ages, all moving efficiently, almost like a well-oiled machine. Their faces were serious, almost menacing. And Lily, she looked different, focused, calm, almost cold. Then one of them noticed me. I froze. The man didn't move right away, just stared. My chest tightened. I thought I was done for, but instead he muttered something to Lily. She looked up, saw me, and her eyes widened, not with fear, but with recognition, calculation. She gestured toward the back exit. I hesitated for a second, but then I ran, ducking behind crates, hearts pounding in my ears. I could hear them behind me now, shouting, footsteps echoing. I burst out a side door into the alley and kept running until the sounds faded. When I finally stopped, leaning against a dumpster, my lungs burning, I realized something terrifying. I had crossed the line. Now they knew I was here. The next few days were hell. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I started noticing people in my neighborhood watching me, cars slowing down when I walked by. My parents thought I was stressed from school, but I couldn't tell them the truth. I couldn't tell anyone. And then the phone call came. No number. Just a distorted voice, calm, icy. You're in too deep. Stop following her or it won't end well. I hung up, my hands shaking. Every instinct screamed at me to quit, to run, to disappear. But I couldn't. I needed answers. I needed to know what she was involved in, why she had chosen this path. That night, I decided I would confront her. Not in public, not anywhere risky. I had to talk to her alone, to get the truth straight from her. I waited until everyone in her house was asleep. Then I quietly climbed the fire escape to her window. I tapped lightly. She opened it surprised but didn't scream. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I need to know, Lily, I said, my voice shaking. What's going on? What is all this? She looked at me for a long moment, then finally sighed. You're too late, she said. You shouldn't have followed me this far. What do you mean? Too late for what? Her eyes filled with something I couldn't place. Fear? Regret? Determination? You've already seen too much, she said. And now, you might be in danger too. Before I could respond, a sound behind me made both of us freeze. The faint creak of a floorboard. Someone else was in the house. Someone moving carefully, deliberately. And then a whisper, just behind her. She brought someone. I turned, but there was nothing there. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I realized in that instant that I was no longer just an observer. I was a part of this, whether I wanted to be or not. The whisper lingered in my ears, chilling me to the bone. I wanted to pull back, to vanish, but my legs felt glued to the fire escape. Lily's hand gripped my wrist, surprisingly strong, pulling me inside. The room was small, cramped, and dimly lit, the kind of space where shadows seemed alive. You shouldn't have come, she repeated, her voice low, urgent. Her eyes darted to the corners, the edges of the room, like she could sense someone's presence I couldn't. They watch everything. They always know. Who are they? I whispered. What's happening? She swallowed hard. I didn't want you to see this, but it's not just me. They're dangerous. They'll hurt anyone who gets too close. The creak came again, closer this time, and I could feel the air thicken with tension. My heart raced, but I forced myself to think clearly. If we were going to get out of this, I needed a plan, and fast. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the floor. One of them was here. I could barely make out a figure, tall, silent, almost gliding across the room. Lily grabbed my arm and pressed me against the wall, motioning for me to stay quiet. The figure stopped just a few feet away, tilting its head like it could smell us. I held my breath, my chest tight, my mind racing. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it retreated into the darkness. That was close, Lily whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Too close. They're everywhere. They don't miss a thing. Why are they after you? I asked, my voice cracking. What did you get involved in?" Lily's eyes darkened, and for a moment she looked almost broken. "It's not just about me. It's bigger than you or me. You've stumbled into something that could destroy lives, mine, yours, everyone around us." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. I froze. I hadn't touched it. The screen lit up with a single message: "Stop now, or it will end badly." I dropped the phone, and Lily's face went pale. "They know we're talking," she said. "They always know." I realized then that I had no idea who these people were or how far their reach extended. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't leave Lily. Not now. Not when she was the only clue to understanding everything. "We have to get out of here," she said, urgency in her voice. "There's a safe place, a place they can't reach, but we have to move fast." I followed her silently, as she led me through a back exit, winding alleys, and abandoned streets. Every shadow, every noise made me flinch. I felt like we were being hunted, and maybe we were. Finally, we reached a small apartment on the edge of the city. It was nondescript, ordinary, exactly what you'd expect a safe house to look like. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Lily closed the door behind us, locking it with trembling hands. "They can't get us here. At least not easily," she said. She sank onto a couch, burying her face in her hands. "But we can't stay long. They'll find a way." I sat across from her, trying to process everything. My mind was spinning. The duffel bag, the packages, the warehouse, the messages, the shadows, everything pointed to something bigger, something darker than I could comprehend. "Lily," I said cautiously, "I need to know the truth. Everything. Now." She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed, haunted. "You're ready to see the darkness behind the mask?" she asked. "I have to be," I said. She nodded slowly, then began to speak, her voice low, deliberate, as if speaking any louder would summon the very danger we were running from. "It started years ago," she said. "I thought I could control it, that I could be invisible. But once you're in, there's no getting out. They recruit, they manipulate, they destroy. And I wanted out. That's why I started packing evidence, keeping records. I thought I could expose them, but they caught me." I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the couch. "And the warehouse, the packages?" She swallowed hard. "Everything you saw, it's part of their operation. Drugs, money laundering, tracking. They're everywhere, and now they know about you, about us." A sudden crash from the window made us both jump. I ran to check, but the blinds were empty, fluttering in the wind. My heart was pounding. Lily's hand found mine, squeezing it tightly. "They're testing us," she whispered, "seeing how much we can handle. And they always know. They always know." I realized then, with a sinking feeling in my stomach, that there was no going back. The life I had known, the mundane, safe life, was gone. I was in the middle of something I didn't fully understand, something that could destroy us both. And yet, despite the fear, despite the danger, I knew I couldn't stop now. Not when we were this close to the truth. The next morning, Lily handed me a folder thick with papers, photos, and notes. "This is everything I've collected," she said. "It's dangerous, but if we're careful, we can use it to fight back. Or at least, survive." I opened the folder and stared at the pages. The depth of what she had uncovered was staggering. Names, dates, places, connections I couldn't begin to process. "This is insane," I whispered. "How can anyone fight something like this?" Lily met my gaze, her expression grim but resolute. "We don't have a choice. Once you've seen it, once you're in, you fight, or you disappear. And disappearing isn't an option anymore." A sudden knock at the door made us both freeze. My blood ran cold. "They found us," Lily whispered. The knock came again, louder, more insistent. My heart raced as I pressed my back against the wall. Lily whispered, "Don't answer. They're testing us, seeing if we panic." I could hear my own pulse in my ears, a deafening rhythm. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The folder of evidence sat on the table between us, our fragile lifeline, and perhaps the reason they were here. "They'll come in," Lily said softly, almost to herself. "And when they do, we have to be ready." The door shuddered under another heavy knock. Then came the voice, a calm, almost casual male tone that made my blood run cold. "Lily, you know the rules. You know what happens when you break them." Her eyes widened, fear flickering but quickly masked by determination. "Not this time," she whispered. "Not today." The door burst open. 3 figures stood in the doorway, their faces obscured by masks. They moved like predators, precise, confident, their presence instantly suffocating. I could feel the tension snapping like a taut wire. I knew we had seconds, maybe less. Lily grabbed my hand and pulled me to the side, ducking behind the couch. One of them scanned the room, his gaze piercing like he could see through the walls. "Where's the folder?" he demanded. Lily stepped forward, hands raised, voice steady. "You won't get it." "Not this time." The tallest one laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the small apartment. "You think you can stop us? After everything we've done? You don't understand what you're dealing with." Suddenly, I realized something. The folder wasn't just evidence. It was leverage. And if we could use it right, maybe we had a chance. I whispered to Lily, "I can distract them." "You get the folder?" She nodded, understanding immediately. My legs shook, but I forced myself forward. "Hey!" I shouted, throwing my voice as loud as I could. "Over here!" The 3 masked figures turned toward me. I could see the momentary confusion in their posture. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Lily seized the opportunity, lunging for the folder. She clutched it to her chest and sprinted toward the back exit. I turned back to face them, heart hammering, mind racing, and just as they advanced, I kicked over a lamp, shattering glass and creating chaos. Screams, crashes, the sound of shuffling feet. The chaos bought us seconds. I sprinted after Lily, bursting through the back door into the alley. The cold air hit us like a shock, snapping me fully awake. We ran, zigzagging through streets, hearts pounding, lungs burning. I didn't know where we were going, only that we had to keep moving. Every shadow seemed alive, every footstep behind us a potential threat. Finally, we reached a small parking garage. Lily threw the folder into my hands. "We can't stop. We need to disappear," she said, breathless. I nodded, gripping the folder like a lifeline. "Where do we go?" She shook her head. "Somewhere they won't find us. And we start fighting back. We have evidence. We can expose them. Eventually." I swallowed hard, realizing the truth. There was no going back to normal. Nothing would ever be the same. The fear, the paranoia, the constant watching, it was now our reality. But we weren't powerless. Not anymore. From the shadows, a car door clicked. We froze. A figure approached, but this time there was something different. An unspoken understanding. Lily whispered, "Stay close. Trust no one but me." The figure stopped just a few feet away and lifted their hands. Slowly, deliberately, they removed the mask. My breath caught. It was someone I knew. Someone I thought I could trust. "Did you really think you could hide forever?" The voice said, calm, terrifying. We backed up instinctively, but Lily didn't flinch. She held the folder tighter, eyes locked on the figure. "We're done running," she said. The figure smiled, cold and menacing. "We'll see about that." A sudden noise, a screech of tires, a shout, the flash of movement, pulled my attention. Lily grabbed my hand again. "Go!" she yelled. We ran into the darkness of the garage, hearts pounding, every step taking us further from safety and deeper into the unknown. I realized then that nothing would ever be certain again. Every face, every shadow, every word could be a threat. But somehow, we were alive. And as long as we had each other, and the folder, we had a chance. Somewhere out there, they were watching, always watching. But for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks, hope. Hope, and the raw, terrifying thrill of fighting back. The city swallowed us into its night, and we vanished into the shadows, determined to survive, determined to uncover the truth, determined to take back what was stolen from us. And in that darkness, I realized the real nightmare had only just begun.